Welcome everyone to Textiles and Tea with the Handweavers Guild of America. I'm Kathy Group. I'm the advertising manager and I'm your host today. We have a special sponsor today. It's in memory of Kathy Stulge. And she is an intrepid weaver. And we thank you, Angie, for doing this today for her. I'm sure she is very pleased and looking down on us. And it's nice to be able to remember people that way. So Kathy, this Textiles and Tea is for you. Don't forget, we take questions at the end. If you would, please put them in the Q&A and not in the chat. It's hard for me to see them when they're in the Q&A, and I want to make sure that, they're hard for me to see when they're in the chat. I want to make sure we get to as many questions as we can today, so please put them in the questions. Today, we have Kathy Monaghan. Now, Kathy has 40 years of experience in weaving and in textiles. She's a dedicated fiber artist and a very popular instructor, and it's why we have her at Convergence this summer also. She's the author of the book, You Can Weave, Projects for Young Weavers, and we'll talk some more about that later today. She's taught weaving at every level for over 35 years. She loves sharing techniques and inspiration with all of her students, but particularly with beginners. Kathy excels at breaking complex tasks into easy to understand steps to ensure the beginner's success, and she never tires of seeing the joy in students when they master a new skill. Her day job, she's the director of marketing for Pendleton Woolen Mills, designing experiences for the public to learn about the complete fabric production process, including the fiber sourcing, dyeing, carding, spinning, warping, weaving, and the finished goods. And we are excited to have her here today. Hey, Kathy.
Hey there. It's so nice to be with y'all.
It's wonderful to have you here. So we're going to start off with our tough question, which is, what is your favorite tea? You ready to go?
Yes, I am. So, for me right now, sometimes I change. It's like sometimes it's Earl Grey, but for a while now, it's been just basic red rose. But I really like strong tea, and I add milk and sugar to it. So red rose, milk and sugar. However, it has to be in this cup. I don't know how many of you are like that, but this is a vintage cup. It's an old diner cup. I have a couple of them. I bought at a secondhand store. They're from Buffalo China in New York. That was around for like 100 years. If you eat in diners, you probably ate off their dinnerware. It's like unbreakable, but it's ceramic. And it's part of that American industrial history that's just so great. So anyway, red rose in my special 6-ounce Buffalo China cup.
Oh, well, thanks for sharing that about the cup. That's great. I'm going to have to pay attention what my cups are when I go to a diner now. Well, you talked some about what all you do now, but how did you get started with fiber?
Well, I think, for like a lot of us, it's how we grew up. So my mom, I come from a large family, a big Irish American family. We had 9 people in our family, 7 kids, and my mom sewed. Not as like a hobby, but as a necessity. So like she made my prom dress and she made, everything. So she also crocheted a lot and she knit a lot. So I saw this around me all the time, which I think is really important to like see it so you can model it. It seems like a simple thing, but how do you hold needles? If you've never seen it, how do you know? So my mom was a great model. One of the things that we did, we didn't shop for clothes ever at the beginning of the year. We shopped for fabric. So we got ingredients instead of finished goods always. So that would be the primary thing. And then when I went to college, I studied art. I studied drawing and painting and sculpture and ceramics and everything. However, it wasn't until I hit my first fiber class where it's like, oh, everything came together. It's like, oh, I can use what I know about color on fabric. I can figure out texture and pattern. All of it came together for me once I started in textiles. So as an artist, you're not encouraged to like be a generalist, honestly. But if you don't like specialize, I just work in sculpture. But I was a generalist for a long time. But then when I found textiles, it really did all come together, which is you know, what a lot of us find out, and for me, what that always shows me is how important it is to sample things. Like, I don't mean like make a sample, although you should, but like little bites of things, like take this class, take that class. Maybe you don't think you're gonna like it, but maybe you will. If you don't get a chance to try it, you might not know you actually love it. So, I started with all those things, but as a starving student, I would jump in and do art fairs like a lot of people. So I would, do art shows. And for a while, I did a lot of surface design. So the scarves you see there are silk scarves. For a long time, I painted all of them individually. I poured like too many hours into it that could never get you can never get back if you're trying to sell your work, how much time you're putting into it. I finally hit on the fact that people just wanted beautiful colors if they're talking about a scarf. They didn't really need to see like a giant masterpiece painted one of a kind. So then I hit some things that were actually pretty marketable. I love the color. I love the way it like plays across the silk. So for a while I made those. On the left, you see the that textured white throw. That was my brief foray into production weaving. I got a commission to do some custom throws for a real estate developer that they gifted to everybody who bought a condo in their resort. So these were mixed warps, a bunch of Henry's Attic yarns, and then woven with mohair, which floated around my entire house for months. And we ate it in every meal because it floated around. Brushed mohair. Yeah, not going to do that again. But their logo was then appliqued with ultra suede and stuffed, and it was beautiful. Wove about 100 yards of that fabric. Um, Learned a lot. There were about 25-yard warps on a sectional beam, and then a lot of mohair weft and brushing. So that's where then I went to a workshop with Anita Mayer, and I remember her saying she doesn't sell her work, that she sells her knowledge and she teaches, but that it's too hard for her to pour as many hours into a piece as she wants to if she's going to have it come back, have to sell it. And I really love that idea of like keeping your work separate from commerce. And so like, put ridiculous number of hours into it because you love it, if you don't have to turn it around and make a profit on it. So that's kind of that's where I am.
I love that. There's so much in there I want to ask you about, and I think we'll get to a lot of it. But for right now, I want to talk about your book. Now, you are so well known for this book, You Can Weave, and I loved the book before I met you. So, because every guild I know of, and our guild especially, we were trying to figure out how to deal with kids. How do you teach with it? And this was the book we went to. We love this book. So,
that's fantastic.
Would you share with us, because this came about because of your own struggles with trying to teach younger kids. And I'm assuming when you say younger, you mean like 6, 7 years old, right?
Yeah. Yeah, from kindergarten on up.
Okay,
Yeah.
so would you talk about how those experiences, what were they, and how they led to a book?
Absolutely. So I was fortunate to be an elementary art specialist for a number of years in Spokane, Washington, at the public schools there. And, as I mentioned before, I was a generalist in college. I took everything, so I was like, I took ceramics, and so it's not great for setting yourself up as a professional artist, but is perfect for being an art teacher because you have to do everything. So I was like, yes, printmaking, absolutely. Hold on a minute. I think there's an Amber Alert coming through on my phone. That, you have to be able to do everything in a school. So for instance, I would be firing ceramic pots in 4 parts of the city, as I had 6th graders making pinch pots, and I had all these different things going, and we had a great time, and I thought the students did excellent work. And then we do my area, my textiles, we would do a weaving project that was like, and so I was thinking, gosh, maybe the kids are too young. Maybe they don't have enough something. And so I kind of set them aside. And then I was reading actually an article on handwoven, and they were talking about, I'm not sure which particular traditional textile heritage, but there, you know, in a lot of countries, people weave all the time. And then in this one, they mentioned that the kids wove, but they weren't expected to do really excellent work until they were around 6 years old. And it's like, whoa, okay, well, it's not their age. So what is it? So, you know, thinking about what could it be? And then I realized when we do drawing or painting, I'm building on, you know, 5 years of their experience with the crayon. You know, they didn't, and they saw people use them. They've held brushes, they've held pencils, and they know when they press on it, it gets darker. And if they turn on its side, it gets wider. So they have all this experience. And so when I come in with a painting project or a drawing project, you know, I'm building on it. And it's like, these kids never see it. They don't see people spinning and they don't see people weaving. They don't have a vocabulary. They don't know over and under. Why would they know over and under? And they don't know what's important, what makes it well crafted. So I was in the midst of my master's in curriculum development and in creative arts and learning. And so I built a curriculum for my thesis to do that, to build step by step a set of skills so that kids could learn to weave. And then on top of that, how to integrate it into other subjects. So about social studies or about math. And, you know, of teaching a kid, you know, over under and having them do it physically, having them walk around each other. What is a warp? You stand straight. What is a weft? You go behind and front. And getting them these skills, honestly, over and under. And then giving them the specific information about making sure what makes a good, well-crafted weaving. And bam, they went off. It was just great. And we had incredible success with that once they had that feedback or that basis. And then once I had that pretty well established and had done it in classes with success, that's when I took it to, actually I took it to Davis Publications, which is they've been around for 100 years as well in their arts education publisher, and they really market to teachers, and they publish school arts, and they're a great partner. They're a fantastic partner. So anyway, that's how we came up with You Can Weave. And I love the book. I love that it goes about and has a life and hopefully has made some new weavers out there. So.
Well, you also were involved in a 100-day challenge. So we're going to talk a little bit about your work. Would you talk about the challenge, what was involved in it, and how do you think a challenge like that supported or expanded or helped your own work?
Absolutely. 100-day challenge is something that is around for lots and lots of areas. Like there'll be it's a prompt for it's kind of a method for inspiring daily practice. So it might be poetry would do that. It's like write a line of poetry one a day, or write a poem once a day, or do a drawing once a day. And it's just that encouragement. It's just a kind of a little, I don't want to say gimmick, more like a structure or a matrix, and to give yourself, it's something that's a stretch but doable. So I ran into it honestly on Instagram and saw something, and it's like, huh, and it was around the corner, so it's like, I'm just gonna do it. So you know, you just sign up. Nobody's gonna monitor you. It's just it's a thing to encourage yourself. And my first challenge was, I thought, what's something doable? And I could do 100 days of plain weave. So my first one a number of years ago was 100 days of plain weave. And so I set about once to post to my Instagram once a day a plain weave project. And then within that, I put some other parameters, because I have to say, sometimes people are afraid of limits, but it's actually, limits are artists' friends. It's like if you were to give somebody a blank piece of paper, say, make a drawing, or if you give them a loom and say, weave something, and it's like, oh no, what? And then if you say, here's an inkle loom, here's the yarn, you've got two colors, you have to do this, you have to do that. Then you go, okay, now I have some safety around me. So limits are good. So for me, I made more limits. It's like for 1 week, I'm I'm gonna do warp faced plain weave, 1 week weft faced. And what you see here is the week I said I'm going to weave only with things from the kitchen. So the first one, you can see some hot cross bun kind of things. Those are my husband's a baker. He let me do some weaving with his dough. There's some rubber bands in there. There's some asparagus. There's some uh, colored pasta. There's a banana in there a couple times. So of just like, hey, what else can I do with this? It was super fun. It was really, really fun. And it stretched. So for, because it also encouraged me to like, hadn't tried a pin loom before, and this loom and that loom. And since I had to do it every day, some of it was really small. So I tried some small looms. It was really, really fun. And it was 100% for me. It was just great. The other one on the other side, the tapestry during lockdown, right at the beginning of COVID, I bought a Merex loom, which I've been like,
Ooh, yum.
ooh, I really, really want one of those for years. And so I went ahead and bought one, and I signed up for this class. I did know somebody was in from London, a British tapestry weaver, Krista Balford, and she has this wonderful online class on tapestry. And as I mentioned Instagram before, and I use Instagram a lot for inspiration. I find it really, if you're careful and you follow, like curate your feed so that it's like comes to you with inspiration instead of conflict or anything. um, I started to just get really seduced by all the tapestry weavers, and it's like I have to do more because I'd done some tapestry, but not very seriously. And so I signed up for a class. It was so much fun. So every day I'd work at the kitchen table, and then at noon I put my computer aside, bring my Murex out, and for an hour I would weave, and then at 1 o'clock I'd bring the computer back. But every day it encouraged me. So that everyday part is really fun. And then also I'm pretty excited about color gradations. And so I got to play with color gradations with different yarns. I actually ended up a lot of times like using sewing thread as the weft, but
Wow.
maybe 10 threads at a time or 20 threads at a time. So you could get all these different variations of color pretty inexpensively. So I encourage anybody who is interested to just look up the 100-day challenge, join it. Every year it happens, but you can start anytime. And people do amazing things.
So they have a whole Instagram, Facebook following that you can see what everybody's doing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And get so inspired by what other people do.
Yeah, yeah. You're very disciplined. I can't imagine me stopping work, weaving, and not going, okay, 5 more minutes, 10 more minutes. It would be hard for me. So
Yep.
I'm impressed. You talked about plain weave that you used a lot of plain weave, and you even teach a class called Passion for Plain Weave. What is it about plain weave that strikes you or appeals to you?
Well, for one thing, I actually seem to default back to very simple tools. There's a phrase, it's not the car, it's the driver that I really like, and so you don't need a whole lot to make something beautiful. And for some reason, well, I know what it is. It's like I really like to spin, but I don't spin fancy. And I like to knit, but I knit stockinette on circulars. Okay, so I like repetition. And like if you take something and then do it the best you can, and then do it again and again, and again. I like that. It's like does something for me. That it's meditative. So for me, plain weave is continually like it's nice to be able to establish a rhythm, but I never get bored with it. I think it's so exciting. And truthfully, I don't know, there's certain textiles I see, historic ones, but modern ones too. And it's just like the interlacement of threads I find very satisfying. So and
Yeah.
often there's so many things going on in a textile that you don't need to add pattern on top of that. If you've got color and texture and all these different things, a lot of times people run into like, oh, but what structure should I use? And they're almost apologetic about, well, I could always do plain weave, as though it's like less than, but it's like, it's awesome. So I just love how versatile it is, and also that you can do it on very simple looms.
Mm-hmm.
You never need, you never, you don't even need any shafts. You can do it on a frame loom. So I love that. It's so accessible, but I'm continually excited by color and texture and all those things. So it's enough for me. It's so perfect.
I love that. I find that I'm going through a plain weave phase myself right now. The last two projects I've done have been plain weave, and I thought it would drive me crazy, but I'm really loving it. It's kind of zen-like, you know?
I will thread up my 8 harness loom with an 8 harness twill and weave plain weave.
We're going to have to get our plain weave people together. Well, you're also a spinner. So
I
here
am.
we're going to look at some of the fibers that you have spun, and they were inspired by the Ho, is that right?
Yeah.
H-O-H, Ho
Uh-huh.
rainforest in the Olympic National Park. So can
Yeah.
you talk some about these yarns that you created?
Absolutely. Again, Instagram got me. I started following some spinners and I hadn't spun in years. I had an Ashford long time ago, an Ashford, and I had a drum carter, and I had a this and that. And I always felt obliged actually that I
Mhm.
had to start with raw fleece. And so it was a lot of work, picking it, drying it, carding it, all that. So I didn't spin that much. I could spin, but I just didn't do it that much. And it was a lot of space and all. So I put it aside for a long time. And then I started seeing these spinners, and it was like, again, dead simple, like a simple tool, drop spindle spinning. And it was like, oh no, it's so pretty. So I bought a new drop spindle, and this was, probably about 4 years ago. And then into the pandemic of like just spinning, spinning, spinning on a drop spindle. And it was great. However, if you spin on drop spindle, eventually your shoulder like freezes. And so, I did as much as I could on that. And then I ran into somebody that had an e-spinner, and they mentioned this particular e-spinner that was on Kickstarter, and it was $75 for a tiny little e-spinner by Dreaming Robots. It was an electric eel wheel. And it's like, that's a pretty low threshold for joining. So I started doing that. And what it gave me was this tiny little thing. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment, and it sat on my it sat on my coffee table, and it encouraged me every day to spin. And I do like to stream things on Netflix and all, so I could always feel very righteous because I was spinning. So I wound up spinning like 25 hours a week, which tells you how much TV I watch. But I was spinning a lot, and I just got better. And so the other thing I did was I gave myself permission to not start from raw fleece. And so I started buying hand-dyed fibers from people. And when I visited the rainforest a couple years ago, I saw this combination of colors. It was like 1,000 greens and 1,000 browns. And it was just so like, oh, it was so pretty. And it was, alive things and dead things and all that stuff. And at one point, we had like elk walk through, and it's like they're brown too. And it's like that color combination was intriguing to me. So I started just I'm a fiber tourist. So when we go to a town, I go and I find a yarn store, and if there's some local fleece that's browns or greens or close, I buy it. So this has been a collection of fibers I've been playing around with. What it's going to be, it doesn't matter. The end product might be yarn. It'll probably be yardage, which will then probably be a coat. But at this point, it's pretty happy to be yarn. And so it's like, I do like to play with plies. It might be 2-ply or 3-ply chain ply. It could be cable plies of like up to 6 plies. Anyway, I really think the end product at this point is yarn for me, and I love it.
Well, it's beautiful. It's so gorgeous. So,
Yeah, the rainforest is amazing.
you're one of the few people I know of that have a job in the fiber industry and are also a weaver, spinner, dyer, or whatever. So you work for Pendleton Woolen Mills. And if you could just say a little bit about what that is for those who are not familiar with it. Everybody, I'm sure on
Yeah,
the West Coast knows who Pendleton is, but just in
yeah.
case.
I am so lucky. I when I was a kid in the fabric store with my mom, Pendleton was that really beautiful wool that we couldn't afford, but you aspired to. It was like the prettiest stuff out there. But if you were going to make a coat that was going to last forever, Pendleton yardage was what you bought. So I knew of it as a raw material, but I got to know it more widely as the years go by. But Pendleton has been around since 1863, all the way back to a founder who came from Britain as a weaver, established woolen mills in Oregon, and then eventually his grandkids started a new mill in Pendleton, Oregon, which became in 1909 became Pendleton Woolen Mills. So there's jacquard looms in Pendleton, Oregon, and Dobby looms, which weave plain weave fabrics in Washougal, Washington. And so we have two of the last remaining three woolen mills in the United States. And when it opened in 1909, there were 1,000 woolen mills in the US, which is shocking. That aspect of, again, American industry, it's really important. And as things close, nobody knows it anymore. Nobody knows how to run these machines. But what I love about it is I go to the mills. I love going to our mills, and they do factory tours 5 days a week in both mills, so you can go in and see it. But this is the creel. It holds on the left, holds the yarns, and everything that I do at home, they do on a huge scale. So it's like I know all the steps, but it's like almost like you go into a commercial kitchen and it's like, oh, that's like my easy bake oven at home. It is the same, but on like a massive scale. It's so fun. And so I understand the processes, but then you get to see it scaled up and you get to see 4,000 threads on the looms. You see the jacquard, these two-story jacquard looms weaving patterns that have been in the line for 100 years. Anyway, it's very exciting. And so my job is to share my excitement with other people. It's you couldn't have a more perfect job for me. And so I get to design experiences for those visiting our stores and visiting our mills, and also just telling what we do. Yeah, so it's the best of all possible worlds. I actually applied, my first application was to be a sample weaver for Pendleton. They didn't hire me. I don't know why. But I did get hired for this job, so I win.
Well, give me an example of something that you would design as an experience.
So for instance, we have in the stores we have what we call a wool chart, and it's actually hands-on that shows all the stages. People don't know how fabric gets made, and so we show the raw fiber, we show it dyed, we show it carded, we show it as roving, and then spun, and then woven, and then finished. And the other thing that I get to do is to share our stories of our wool growers. So, we're a woolen mill. We buy wool from many parts of the world, but about half of the wool comes from the United States. So we work with wool growers that have been around for 100 years with us. So we've been buying from them for 5 generations. And we know them, we know their names, we know their families because it's a family operation often. And so I get to go out and I get to see their production and film it and share that. It's wonderful. It's really wonderful. And then also I got to judge the Make It With Wool contest a couple years ago, which is the American Sheep Industry home sewing contest for woolens for kids.
Oh, wow.
That was cool. They were inspiring. They knew a lot. It was really fun. So yeah, those are the kinds of things I get to do on a day-to-day basis, but also photography and just sharing what it is and why it's important and why it meets a need. Because wool is really, really sustainable. So
you're carrying the flag for wool. Thank you.
yes,
We appreciate that.
I am a wool evangelist.
So how do you think your background in teaching and your weaving experience, some of it's obviously connected, but helped you get your job or make your job easier?
Yeah. Well, I'm a bit of a unicorn in that I do understand the process because I actually make them myself. And so in the same way that when I think about a lesson, what do I want my students to know and understand and be able to do, I think about the same thing. What do I want our customers to know and understand in order to make a to make a purchase. Why would this meet their needs? Why would this be a solution for them? Why? And so all of those things, I do understand, the backstory on it. I understand the amount of work that goes into it, and then also the design aspect of it. So I get to work with the designers too, in our fabric design department. It's so cool. It's so fun. They're designing new structures that we'll weave on our looms, and it's like, that's cool. I might be the only person that's like giddy when we talk about structures in the room, but it's pretty fun.
They are lucky to have you. They are very lucky to have you. So you, as you've been talking today, you're obviously involved in a variety of fiber activities. You do beading, you do embroidery, you do felting, probably a lot more than I'm not even aware of. So when you're working in these other modalities, do you think they help you come up with ideas for weaving? Or do this weaving help you come up with ideas for that?
Well, I've never met a woven piece that I wouldn't want to add a bead to. I have to say, my students would like, yeah, I know I could bead the ends. It's like, yeah, we could. But all of it, I've also never met a craft I didn't love. So, all of it feeds on itself, and then also I get ideas from one to the other. Absolutely, color gradations. So for instance, I love color gradations in everything. Like I love color gradations in weaving. I love color gradations in tapestry and in knitting, but then I like it in beadwork too. So
This is a
I
great
think I
example
see
of it.
it's like playing with the color, playing with the gradations always for me.
Mhm.
And then, adding texture and shine. And I might have been a crow in another life because I have a lot of beads, and I try to limit what I get because I have a lot. So, but it's so fun. Each of those things really, for me, it does one thing inspires another always. And I actually think for a lot of us, I've talked to some of my students who are absolutely this way, but it's the driving in your car and thinking about it. It's like doing the dishes and thinking about it. All of that is part of the process and super fun. It's like, how am I going to fix that? How am I going to solve that? What am I going to do? And it doesn't, for me, it doesn't, if it takes a long time, it's like, cool, that's more fun for me. What am I going to do with all that brown and green yarn? I don't know. So it's in my mind. I'm putting in my loom. I'm like doing this. And it's like, I just play with it in my mind. And it's really fun. I find all of that to be like added value. I get to think about it a long time.
One thing you said early on is, and I agree, is that somehow if you do more than one craft, people think that you're, disorganized or you can't focus,
Flighty. Yeah.
whatever. Yeah. And I love it that you really see the importance in that, is that they
I
build on each other. They
I'm
build
on
on
I'm
each other.
omnivorous. Yeah. I'm a craft omnivore.
That's right. You're a beadaholic.
I am. I
You
admit it.
are.
Admit it.
Pretties. Yes. I like that crow thing too. That's so true. That's so true. Ooh, beads. Um, when I was looking at your Instagram page, and y'all, you should look at our Instagram page. It is a thing of beauty to behold. And it took me a minute to figure it out because the images were just beautiful. They were artwork in themselves. There
Well,
was the
thanks.
artwork that was the subject, but the photographs are amazing. And then I was kind of like, duh. You also studied photography, right?
Well, I in study it somewhat, but I also married a photographer nearly 40 years ago. So we've worked together. He actually photographed everything in my book, You Can Weave. And then our publisher came to us afterwards and said, "Hey, we need a new textbook for photography." And so we worked together on a high school photography textbook, which is in
Oh,
its second edition along with a digital edition. And so my husband and I collaborate on photos all the time. We share some space here. This is his part of our wall here. He's for a while during the pandemic, he was photographing little beautiful still lifes of flowers in different states of aliveness and decayness. So um we photograph all the time together, but also I manage photography for the company. So yeah, photography actually shares a lot with weaving, you know, colors, textures, patterns, shapes. It's all the same thing. It's another craft, actually. So yeah, and my husband Herman and I we work together a lot on projects. So um yeah.
Well, I think it's always, and I understand this from being an employee of the Handweavers Guild and working with the folks who do the exhibits and the magazines and everything, is how important it is to have good photography of your work. Because
Mhm.
if you don't, you do such a disservice to the final piece. You know, if
Yeah,
you
and
don't get the right color, if you don't get those details and that kind of thing.
well, and it's interesting too because I think it used to be a lot harder to be good at photography because you had to have a camera and then, with film, you had to take a picture and then wait for it to come back to see if you got it. And Herm and I have both discussed this a lot, how what the advantage is for all of us to have phones that take pictures because you take a picture and then you look at it and it's like, got it, didn't get it, go up higher, go down lower. And so everybody knows about a high angle and a low angle, and then also filters and how you change things. And so people know a lot about photography now, and it's very much more accessible than it ever was. Also, you get to do that, it takes 10,000 hours. A lot of us are like past 10,000 hours on taking pictures. So people are very good at photography now. And it's like, and the younger people as they come up, we're gonna have excellent, excellent artists. We do already. But
Mhm.
I think it's super accessible for people. But do judge it. So that you look at it, it's like it's out of focus. Retake it. You look at it and it's like, oh, what if I came lower or this or tried a different angle and just try it. You don't have to wait for the film to come back to see if you got it or not. So it's great. We're in a golden age of photography right now.
Well, it sure is more accessible to everybody, and I absolutely agree. Um, so if somebody came to you and said, I have this project for you and I want you to do it, what would it be? What would be your dream project?
Well, I'm omnivorous, so it doesn't matter to me. It's like I'll take it on, whatever. But as long as if I had infinite time, that's what I'd like. Because I do like spending a ridiculous amount of time on things. So I just did just a self-study for myself about plying. And I think I spun a lot of yarn and I plied it all different ways. I probably spent 400 hours on it. And it's
Oh.
still yarn. There's a lot of it, but that's the ultimate project is one where I have infinite time. I don't need infinite money or infinite materials or anything. I just need time. So
Mhm.
that's a perfect project.
Doesn't matter what you're doing as long as you have lots of time to do
I
it.
have time and I can just throw ridiculous amount of time into something and make it really pretty.
So what's next for you?
Well, after 22 years at Pendleton, I'll be retiring at the end of this year.
Oh, really?
So, yes, infinite time. So I will be actually moving back to where we came from 25 years ago, back to Spokane, Washington, rejoin my guild. I was the guild president before I left, and so some of the folks are still there, and I recognize them, and so I'll rejoin the guild, set up a new studio, and spend time with my grandkids, and then, but in the shorter term, I am going to learn Orm Ormberg lace to make how to spin yarn for those wedding ring shawls. I'm taking a workshop at Black Sheep, and then I'm going to Convergence. So those are big things. That's next. So I'll be
Um,
teaching a workshop on how to teach young weavers so that everything that is in the book, we're making a toolkit so people can come in. And it doesn't matter if you're like teaching like vacation Bible school, or you've got grandkids, or you've got kids, or you're a teacher. It's like just getting those little steps, figuring out how to teach them. I'm saying young weavers in that somebody who hasn't woven before. They might be young, they might be older. Everybody learns these steps in a sequence, and adults need that too. So it's basically how to teach people to weave And it's a little system, and you will end up with a little toolkit of, you know, we'll make some looms, we'll do the projects, and then you'll have all the bits and pieces you need to teach somebody else to weave, because it is our mission as weavers to pass this on. Again, if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. If we don't make new weavers, there won't be any. So all of us should be teaching our friends. And oh, one of the things I learned very early on is that I don't have to know everything. If I know one thing, I can teach somebody that one thing. So if you know one thing, you can teach somebody that one thing. You don't have to know everything. Just teach them what you know. So yeah, if we all teach somebody the one or two things that you know, then we'd have more people weaving in the world, which is a good thing.
The one thing I loved about your book, because I have taught beginning weaving from time to time, is that, you know, even though it's kind of for kids, it really did get me to think about how much I say, now do this. But you're right, I'm not really building on the skills that they have. Or am I thinking that way? That, wait a minute, just because I know how to do this doesn't mean they understand it and get it. So
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
your class is probably applicable to anybody who wants to teach, no matter what
yeah,
your population is.
yeah. And you know, you have to always think, I've done this a million times, but it's the first time for them.
Mhm.
And it's, oh, you know, keeping that in mind. It's the first time they've done this, and it's the hardest it'll ever be for them. So get them through it, and then next time it's easier, and next time it's easier. But it's the first time for them. And so like having that beginner mindset always is important. And it's also, you know, one of the things I like to do is to ensure that if somebody follows what I'm saying, they will succeed.
Mhm.
If they try it and they, you know, follow the directions, they will succeed. And that, you know, as an elementary art teacher, I would hear from adults all the time with these horror stories, and it always was like, seems like it was fifth grade. Oh, I love to draw until I was in, and it's usually fourth, fifth grade, and somebody said something mean. Always somebody said something mean, and that just crushed them. And so, of getting people whatever age, because it's honestly, and then they froze there and they never learned. So they're still a fourth grader, you know, just trying for almost the first time. But yeah, it's always, or they'll have this like nostalgic feeling of they did a project that they were successful. It's like, oh, I did that when I was in fifth grade. Fifth grade is a vicious time. It's treacherous for everybody's ego. So yeah. So we just want to ensure success if they try.
I think that's why I like when we do demos, all the guilds do these different demos, because the loom is set up. All you have to do is throw the shuttle, you know, and they walk away, and I keep thinking, because I've always felt this with my own kids too, is I hope that's a good memory for them,
It
that
is.
that will
They're going
be
to
in
tell
their
that.
brain somewhere, that they were
Yeah.
successful, they made something cool, that kind of
Yep.
thing.
And they tell it as an adult. I went to this one thing one time and I did this and it was so cool.
Yeah, yeah. Good for
Yeah.
us. We got to keep
Uh-huh.
doing this.
Yay. Yay.
All right. We have bunches of questions. Shall we go
Great.
to those?
Absolutely.
Um, oh, they were talking about Christabel Balfour. Is it
Yes.
Christabel?
Yes. She's the one
Does
who
she
taught
still teach that online
you
class?
know what? It's online and you can enroll at any time, I believe. And
Okay.
you know, I took the class and I have access to okay, because I watched some of the videos like 100 times because it's like I don't get it still. I don't get it still. Like you know,
That is so encouraging to
trying
all of
to
us.
trying to weave a circle and stuff. Jeez. Yeah, and so it's awesome. I can just keep going back and watching it again and again. So it was like it was a pre-set up one, and she's wonderful. And those British weavers, they're so great. So yeah, but Christabel Balford.
Okay, this is from Debbie Ellis. She says it's not a question, but that she found that Pendleton's old color play single yarns, you introduced those to us in a spinning class with Judith McKenzie years ago,
Yes.
are
Oh my
great
gosh.
for tapestry weaving. Thank you very much.
Some of those are that. Oh, I loved that class. It was so much fun. Yeah, I remember that class. I learned so much. This is from that class. No way. This was a spinning thing I did from that class. That's
Oh,
crack up.
really?
Yeah, Judith McKenzie is awesome. Treasure, national treasure.
All right. Elizabeth, this is from Elizabeth. Since Pendleton makes yarns from local suppliers for their products, do they sell yarns or mill ends? If yes, how do we access those?
Yes, mill ends, not very much yarn, but offcuts from fabric, full yardage, and then also somebody in the popped up something in the chat or something about salvages. So every time we weave a yard of fabric on all of our looms, the selvage edges are cut off on each side. So every yard of fabric creates 2 yards of selvages. And the selvages are kind of like giant chenille. So it's maybe a dozen warp threads with the wefts going back and forth, cut off. So it's like giant worms of big, giant fuzzy things. We also, like if you think about a serger, how when you serge fabric, it has that little piece that cuts off. So every time we sell blankets, some of those come off. All of that, instead of going to the landfill, those go to the Woolen Mill store, which is our exclusive fabric store in Milwaukee, just outside of Portland, Oregon. So yeah, so the Woolen Mill store, Pendleton Woolen Mill store, if you search that on the web, you'll find the website, and you can buy remotely. I mean, you can call, you can order online, and then you can also visit the store, which is super fun. It used to be a mill that made foundation fabric. So it's like lining fabrics for ties, all kinds of things. So that was a functioning mill until about, I think, maybe 40 years ago. So it's in a former mill, and you go in and it's like a temple to fiber arts. It's awesome. There's yardage, there's selvages, there's the selvages and the worms, and then offcuts. You can buy scraps by the pound of different fabrics. It's pretty cool. And there's a lot of rug weavers that use that for their rugs, and it's super lofty. It's awesome. Yeah.
I made my Mecca to there. And everybody was so nice because I live in Georgia. I was out there
Oh,
and they packed everything up for me. They shipped it for me. They were wonderful. So it's such an experience. I encourage you all to
well,
go.
in general, every weaver in Washington, Oregon has a bag of selvages have not used. So
I'm working on it. I've made 2 rugs, still working
good
on them.
job. That's
Yeah,
better than a lot. Everybody else has it just on their to-do list.
yeah,
But they're inexpensive and they're really fun colors.
yes.
So
It was fun
it is.
digging through the box. Oh, I like this. Oh, I like that. Okay. I'm using my hands again. I'm not supposed to do that. Sorry. This is from Betty Womack. Hi, Betty. She said, I bought your book in 2004 in Bath, Maine. I was a middle school teacher from South Georgia, did several projects from the book, especially nature weavings and the pouch weaving project using cereal boxes many times. What loom did you buy to do your tapestries?
So the tapestries are on a Murex, but I've also woven on a box a lot. Sarah Sweat did an amazing project where she actually wove all the way around on all the sides of a box. So I made a briefcase years ago on that. You weave the bottom, you weave the sides, everything all in one piece. It comes off. There's no seams, but it's a three-dimensional object. Um, but yeah, so yeah, mostly either frame looms or that Murex, which I fell in love with and I love.
Nice shout out to Sarah. She is pretty awesome.
She is.
Um,
She's great. She actually has she loaned some pictures, some photos for You Can Weave, actually.
oh, okay.
She was in the neighbor guild for us in Spokane because she was in Idaho.
There you go. Joan LeClaire said, Christabel Balford is wonderful. Her online courses are super, and she goes in great detail and slow enough for us to learn new to weaving adult weavers. There you go.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody wants to know why Pendleton can't ship selvages to Canada.
Probably because of some sort of VAT, some sort of value added tax or something. I
Yeah,
don't know. Shipping to Canada is complicated. Sorry. Come down and
yeah,
visit.
yeah.
Come visit.
People want to know about your work behind you.
Right. So this is at my job and then also at home, I like to have pin boards up that help to like inspire me. And also some of it is like I collect scissors. I can't walk by scissor vendors without buying a scissor. A pair of scissors. I have a lot of pairs of scissors because they're awesome tools. But some of it is, this is actually a portrait my daughter did in felt, but there are
Oh,
some little pieces. This is a strange little piece. I was in the a group at the in the guild in Spokane. This is a double-sided piece, plain weave, illustrating the book, my gosh, Life of Pi. Is Pi on the raft
perfect.
with the with is, I don't want to give it away, but is Pi the tiger or is he with the tiger? And so this was and there's little beads. Guess what? There's beads, and the beads are little skulls. So anyway, that's a little piece. We were, I think study groups are great. Again, it's kind of like the 100-day challenge. And then I wanted to learn to embroider. So just things that are interesting and beautiful shuttles. And then I do knit some. We came back from Ireland a couple years ago, our one and only trip to Ireland. And so that's a little piece I did with some um cable knitting. So a little this and that. And then, like I said, we put things up that inspire us to do more, I think.
Uh-huh. We talked earlier about the going to the forest and how that was inspirational for you. What do you find if you get stuck? Where do you go? How do you get unstuck? Or are you one of those wonderful people that never get stuck?
Well, I don't get stuck very often because I usually have this list of things I just like really want to do.
Mhm.
But a trip to a yarn store often will do it. There's a great store in Spokane that is wonderful. And yeah, so walking down the halls of a yarn store, generally one skein of yarn will do it a lot of times. But yeah, it's usually that or the process. I want to. Sometimes it's also a deadline. My class, so
Oh,
for the last 22 years, I was fortunate to teach a weaving class at Portland Parks and Rec. There's a place called the Multnomah Arts Center, and they've taken an elementary school and turned it into arts classes. So there's that weaving program has been around for quite a while. We have 50 floor looms in this big giant classroom, and we have 5 classes of 10 people each. And so I just finished 22 years teaching there. I had wonderful students. We had about 10 people each session, and we decided to do a towel exchange. And so nothing like a deadline to get you to put a warp on your loom. So that's a lot of times motivation for me is a deadline. We exchanged a swatch and a towel. It was super fun, but that got a towel warp on my loom. Because I had to like I couldn't like not show up. So
yeah,
I
yeah,
think I think a deadline is good. And
yeah.
that's that 100-day challenge. It's just one thing once a day. But I think deadlines are good.
Somebody wants to know, will your book be for sale at Convergence?
It's out of print now, which is good news, bad news. The good news is it's still available on Amazon used. And so it's you
Uh,
usually get it for about five or $6. So yeah, because it was in print for 14 years. So there's a lot of copies out there. And so yeah, you can always buy it off Amazon generally for about $5 or $6. Yeah. But so it won't be for sale there. But you can buy it online. Mhm.
Somebody wants to know, are you judging at the county fairs? Did you used to do that?
I'm not. I'm not. I've never done that. But my daughter and my granddaughter have both entered things in the fair and won ribbons, and it was like a highlight of their life. So whoever's doing that,
Oh.
they're they're doing the work of the angels. No, I've never done that. Nobody's ever asked me.
Um, what are the breeds that contribute to the Pendleton products? What
Oh,
kind of sheep?
we buy about 20 breeds. Those of you who know sheep, a lot of Rambouillet.
Mm,
Um, but generally white-faced sheep because we have to be able to dye all different colors.
mm.
So black-faced sheep generally have black fibers scattered throughout their fleece. So there's certain breeds we buy, Target, Rambouillet, some Columbia. Um, I don't know the others off the top of my head, but there are more than 200 breeds of sheep that are used commercially. And so we generally go towards, we can also only buy from growers who don't paint brand their sheep because our equipment will not remove paint. So yeah, we have growers, mostly Rambouillets and Merino mixes.
Okay. Well, I can't believe it, but our time's up. How did we do this? This went really fast.
You are a wonderful host. That's why.
Oh, well, you're the best guest, bestest guest. Thank you so much for being on here, Kathy. I really do appreciate it. And your fan club is on chat. They've all been saying hi to you. So I'm going to try to save this for you so you can see
Oh,
what everybody
thanks. I would love to see that. I did see a couple things. It's like somebody's from Tok, Alaska. Oh my gosh, I rode my bike through Tok, Alaska. I grew up in Anchorage. So
Oh,
hello
you
from Tok.
did?
I did. I
Oh,
grew up
okay,
and I
cool.
rode my bike up to Tok and then across. Anyway, so I've been to hello to Tok.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We want to, if you want, go to youcanweave.com. It's her website. And again, check out her work and our images and all the information that she provides. Kathy, you're very generous and we do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
We want to thank our sponsor today. Again, it is Kathy. It's in memory of Kathy Stolges, I believe is her name, an intrepid weaver. We were talking about how this is a Kathy day, 3 Kathys. So Kathy, thank you for being our sponsor today. We appreciate it. And we hope your memory lives on in the work that you've done and the friends that you've made. If you want to be a sponsor of Textiles and Tea, you can do it with going online and purchasing a sponsorship, whether it's your business or you or your guild. We would love to have your sponsorship and we really do appreciate it. Helps keep the program going. We've got some things coming up with Convergence soon. We've got classes increasing. We've been talking about this, is that some of our teachers who said they can only take so many have generously agreed to take more. So if you are interested in a class and it was full, check back. Also, don't forget to do the wait list, because if someone does decide to take more students, boom, you'll be on the list and we'll get you in there. Or if unfortunately somebody cancels, you're on the wait list and we can get you in. So be sure you use those and keep checking back to see, if classes have opened back up. We are starting something new this year. We're really excited about it. It's called Marketplace Mondays. So every Monday in May, which is next week, I can't believe it, we will be doing a live Zoom, and it's recorded so you can watch it whenever you want. But we're going to talk up with our vendors about what they're bringing to Convergence. If they have new product, they're going to showcase whether it's your yarn or equipment. So it helps you plan your shopping when you get to Convergence in July. And it's something new. We're excited to try this out this year, and we hope you'll check it out. You can sign up online at weavespindye.org and check out all the different presenters that we're going to have those Mondays in May. We also had some changes in some of the tours. One of the tours is, we've added a tour, the 3rd tour. It's on July 16th. It's the Kansas City Art Institute with Pauline Verbeek. She is also one of our jurors. And you're going to get to see a TC2 in progress, an AVL 16 harness CompuDobby loom. You're going to see this incredible studio, a beautiful, beautiful school. It's one of those you're going to go, gosh, I want to go back to school. Great program. And we're very excited that they're going to bring us in and give us a tour and show us how this machinery works. We also have, after the tour, after you do that, you're going to go to the University of Kansas, their textile studio, and you'll also go to the Spencer Museum of Art. They're going to bring out their fiber items from their collection that we'll get to see kind of a behind the scenes. If you want interested in learning more about the tours, go to the website. And we have an update on our Wednesday tour. We're going to add the Fiber Arts Center of Wichita at the Studio School. Now, this is the home of the Wichita Weaving and Spinning Guild, and they have been wonderful. They have been so helpful in getting this Convergence up and running. They are going to do a exhibit of their members show, and you'll get to see that. Also, they've got some people who are going to do some demoing. They're going to have a woman doing a hands-on gin. She's going to learn how to gin cotton. You're going to learn how to make a pune, for all you spinners out there. And you can possibly try a Sharkaloom because Renee and Anne-Marie Sanchez of Walnut River Cotton and Fiber Company is coming in and doing demos and explaining about how all this works. It's going to be a great afternoon. And then because it's Kansas and you think of wheat when you think of Kansas, they're going to do a demo of how to make, how you learn to weave with wheat. And then you're going to leave with all the materials that you need to make a wheat sample weaving. So that also has been added. It's going to be a lot in this tour. And again, if you're interested, go online to wespindye.org, go to the Convergence page, and you can see all the tours and all the information for it, and you can sign up. We appreciate everyone supporting HGA either through membership or your donations. It helps us with programs like this, Careers in Textiles, Spinning and Weaving Week. All these things happen, and also the new things. We're always trying to find out what do we need to do next for our fiber community, so we appreciate that. Please feel free to donate or join on weavespindye.org. Next week, oh, if you missed an episode, don't want to forget this part, you can watch it on HGA's Facebook page. Just go in and watch it, or you can watch it on YouTube. And if you like watching on YouTube, I encourage you to sign up, because if you subscribe, you'll get a notice every time a new episode is uploaded. So check that out. Next week, we've got John Sturdivant. We're excited to have him on board. Hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you for joining us today. Happy tea.